Why humans may never able to understand what existed before the Big Bang. There is a question so simple that a child can ask it, and so deep that a great physicist may hesitate before answering. What was there before the Big Bang? Not before stars, not before galaxies, but before time itself. And more seriously, you take this question, the more disturbing it becomes because slowly you realize something, that this may not be a mystery waiting to be solved. It may be a boundary that we were never meant to cross. In this video, I'm going to give you a fantasy answer. I'm going to explain why the human mind itself may be incapable of understanding what was there before the Big Bang, no matter how advanced science becomes. And to do that, we need to talk about three things. First, the limitation of time. Second, the limitation of language. And third, the limitation of human mind itself. What was Big Bang really represents? First, let's talk about this. Let's start by destroying a misconception first. The Big Bang was not an explosion inside the space. There was no empty darkness that was waiting to be filled. The Big Bang was the creation of the space fabric itself, and like crucially the creation of time itself. In modern physics, space and times are fused into a structure, space time. You cannot remove time and keep space intact. There are aspects of like they're the aspects of the same thing. When cosmologists mathematically rewind the universe, they don't just see matter compressing. They see distances shrinking, they see energy rising, and they observe time itself becoming shorter. Movements compresses, casualities blurs until eventually the question reaches to a point where time has no earlier value. Not 0 seconds earlier, not negative time, just no earlier. This point is what we call the Big Bang. And here's the key idea that changes everything. The Big Bang is not just the beginning of the universe. It was the beginning of beginning itself. Um Second section must be the deep limitation of time here. Now we can reach the first fundamental barrier by this. When we ask what was there before the Big Bang, we are unknowingly assuming something very specific, that before exists independently of time. But before is not a thing, it is a direction that is inside the time itself. Without time, before collapses. This is why physicists uses the North Pole analogy. When someone asks, what's north to the North Pole? There's no answer because something is hidden there. But because north stops being meaningful by this. In exactly the same way, if time begins at the Big Bang, then asking before of it stops being meaningful. Not it is not unknowable, it is meaningless. It is extremely important because it means the problem is not missing of information. The problem is asking a question that reality does not support. And the reason this feels so disturbing is because human mind is addicted to sequences. Everything we ever knows, it follows something that happens after it. And then something that eventually have happen after that thing that happened before. A universe where time itself begin violates the deepest assumption our mind makes about reality. Then the third one would be the language that betrays us. Now we reach even a deeper failure, one of the most unnoticeable thing, the language itself. We assume language is just a tool to describe thought, but in reality, language shapes what kinds of thoughts are even possible. Every human language ever created is built upon verbs, tenses, sequences, subjects, acting, or objects. Language unfolds linearly, one word after another, meaning arrives after structure. So when we ask, what was there before the Big Bang, the grammar already assumes was means a past, before means a temporal ordering, and what means a definable object. The question already assumes that time exists, which means the moment we try to speak about a timeless origin, language eventually collapse. That's why explanation limited fall into metaphors like nothingness, void, eternal, infinite. These are something most used words when we just lack language. But look closely, even nothing assumes absence over time. Even eternal assumes endless duration. And stillness, the word, assumes the possibility of movement. Language has no symbols for a reality where change itself does not exist. And since thought is heavily dependent on language, the mind loses its footing. This is why physics become poetic at the edges. Not because scientists are being vague, but because literal speech stops working. And fourth, the brain, it's the final wall. Now, if we go deeper than physics here, the human brain is not a neural observer of reality. It is a story building machine that actually works. Your sense of self exists because you remember the past, you anticipate the future, and you link events into narratives. Identity itself, is stretched across time. A truly timeless state would have no memory, no anticipation, no sequence, and eventually no narrative, which means something very terrifying because a timeless reality is not unimaginable, it is unexperienceable for a human mind. This is not because of, it is not about intelligence, it is about the architecture of our human mind itself. Just as a fish cannot experience dry land, a time bound consciousness, it cannot experience timelessness. We can approach it mathematically, we can make a gesture towards it philosophically, but we cannot be there. This is why even advanced theories, they don't give peace, they just give abstractions. And last might be why physics may not save us from this problem eventually, because we people believe future theories will solve this, like quantum gravity, string theories, like something maybe unknown for now, but maybe there will be something, something extent equations beyond the Big Bang. Because here is the crucial distinction: calculation is not a comprehension. We already calculate higher dimensions that we cannot visualize at present. We already has described particles that defy intuitions. Even if physics explains a timeless origin, the human mind may never feel it was real. So the limit may not be scientific, it may be biological. Um, in last, I would say the most powerful truth about it, like what was there before the Big Bang from which we started this video, the most honest answer science can give it is not a theory. It is the question itself may not apply. The Big Bang may not be the beginning of everything, it may be the beginning of where human understanding can operate. Beyond it may not be darkness, may not be a mystery, not even a chaos, not even something a chaos, but something more quieter, a region of reality where time has no meaning, language has no grammar, and thoughts eventually has no structure. And maybe the deepest truth is not that the universe is unknowable, but that we are finite instruments trying to hear something beyond our range. And the Big Bang is exactly the moment where the universe just becomes understandable enough for creatures like us to exist and to ask the question what the universe is actually is. And just it's incomprehensible enough that we may never answer it.